Welcome to another episode of Jim Merritt's Indiana. September is Prevention of Suicide Month, and it should be every day preventing suicide. We've talked with veterans. We're going to talk about teen suicide today. We have Bart Doan with us today. He is Assistant Director of Youth Initiatives for the Department of Workforce Development in the state of Indiana. Bart, thank you so much for being with us today. You're a dad, you're a coach, soccer coach, you're so active with teens these days. You go into classrooms. Talk a little bit about the youth initiatives with the Department of Workforce Development in the state of Indiana.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. So the Department of Workforce Development, a lot of people think of it as the unemployment agency because I think that's all you see on the news. But the reality is there are a lot of programs in the agency that serve Hoosiers. I call it the reemployment agency because the programs focus more on getting adults and young people, which is where I come in, on a track to success if they might not be. The Youth Initiatives team, there's sort of two arms to it. There's the in-school arm of it, which we'll talk a little bit about, and then there's the out-of-school arm of it, which serves young people who may have dropped out or be looking to go back and get their high school diploma and may have been incarcerated. The in-school portion of it is the portion that we'll talk a lot about as it relates to some of this teen suicide data and specifically our Jobs for America's graduates programs that are in schools.
And you deal with the idea, the tragedy, the thoughts of teen suicide on a daily basis. When you go into a classroom, what is your message to kids?
Well, I think it's dual. The first part of the message is trying to understand why some of this is happening. You know, according to FSSA, within the last calendar year, 10% of Indiana teenagers have attempted to take their own lives. That's a staggering number. When we look at teens having contemplated suicide within the last year, Indiana State Department of Health did a survey, and it came up that 27% said that they had.
That is scary.
So you go in with that message and say, hey, this is going on with your peers. Do you know this? Shockingly, a lot of them do. Mm-hmm. A lot of them understand this data, and they understand that things are bad. You know, Indiana is 20th in teen suicide ideation in the country.
What is the core of this?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question, and it sort of varies by demographic. When I go to more rural schools, it talks about sort of the generational poverty that they deal with and the lack of opportunity, the lack of jobs, the lack of ability to get out of familial issues from the past. When you go into the more suburban and urban areas, I hear more about drugs, I hear more about violence, I hear more about lack of opportunity to get out. So it sort of varies based on where it is, but the problem maintains pretty consistently across the state of Indiana.
Mm-hmm. Well, why are you involved with this? This is an issue that is sad, but I would think also uplifting because you make a difference. Why are you concentrating in your career with the youth initiatives for the Department of Workforce Development?
Yeah, so there's two answers to this. One is sort of a work portion of it, one's a personal portion of it. When I was younger, I took a lot of bullying. At one point, I thought that God's time with me on this earth was done, and I had thought that it was time to just depart. So when I go around and talk to young people about, you know, that 27% or 22% now that have either attempted to take their own lives or made a serious plan to take their own lives in the last year, I tell the kids straight out, when I was your age, I was in that 20%. Mm-hmm. I didn't listen to the people that told me to go kill myself. I got through it largely with the help of my loving mother, mm-hmm. And her support. So that's the personal side of it. I don't want to see kiddos leave and think that they have to feed into the negativity, and I want to give them tools to get out of it that I used. Okay. The second portion of it is there are great programs out there that Indiana has, specifically that JAG Indiana program I talked about, that can help kiddos that are feeling this way mm-hmm. get onto a positive path.
Mm-hmm. You know, Jim Merritt's Indiana always tries to kind of lean on the positive.
Yeah.
You have success stories. Tell us one success story that you have with an individual child that maybe was considering doing away with themselves.
Yeah, this is probably my favorite story, and it's one of those that changed the way I view a lot of things in life. I was down at a Southern Indiana school, and I was given the speech that I give, and I get feedback from the young people. It's not just talking into empty air. It's very interactive what we do. Love to invite you sometime. But this young man came up to me afterwards, and he said, I barely came to school today. I actually attempted to take my own life last week. It didn't work out. I was pondering it again. And he said, after this speech, he goes, thank you. I don't think I'm going to go that route anymore. And he ended up graduating. He's fine to this day. And I don't know what it is that I said that changed that framework in his mind, but I'm certainly glad, and it's something that I will never ever forget.
Bart, what is the call to action here? You've done a lot of good work. We have a lot of depression out there. Sometimes parents can't see it with their kids. What is the call to action for your agency, for your programs, for you?
I think if you're involved with schools, if you're involved with school administration, www.jagindiana.org, you can learn about the program and about the expansion and how this program helps these students. So JAG is a kind of a workforce development preparation program for young people that exists in the schools. So whereas I took journalism or wood shop in high school, JAG is a kind of how to do life class, and students learn, they connect with employers, they learn how to get on the next path to graduation and success, and the program works. Students are identified for the program as not being on a path to graduation and success, and the program has a 95% graduation rate.
What's your favorite story for JAG, a success story for JAG?
Oh my goodness, it's almost hard to, there's so many, but I think the ones that mean the most to me, I met a young lady from Southern Indiana last year, and she had a lot of abuse in her life. She had a lot of depression thoughts in her life, substance abuse because of abuse in her life. And here's this kiddo that now has a great GPA. She's going to college. She has a career path. And the cool thing about the program is two things. One, when the students graduate, their teacher follows up with them for a year to make sure they're still successful, and about 84% of those kids are full-time successful a year out. The second part is it's worked so well that Governor Holcomb has asked us to expand it and double it by spring of 2025. So that would be 250 programs in schools across the state of Indiana. So when you have that support at that level of government, it shows, hey, it works, it's getting our kids graduated, it's getting them successful, and it's getting them out of this 20%, 22% where they're thinking about not wanting to be here anymore and taking their own lives. There's not a blinking light over people's heads that say, I'm in this to 20%. It's the quarterback of the football team. It is the kid sometimes that has his or her head down in class. It's the captain of the cheerleading squad. Everybody is feeling something in some way, and you never know who's in that group. And sometimes it's just simply, hey, how's your spirit today? How are you doing today? Do you want to talk for a second? And you might get no for 6 straight months, and then one day you might get, you know what? I'm going to take you up on that offer because there's some stuff going on. And that might be the breakthrough that person needs. And you don't need to be anybody special to do it.
September is Prevention of Suicide Month. There is so much we all can do. These are great programs for teens, for veterans, for all of us. Mental health is health. I encourage you to reach out. You're watching another episode of Jim Merritt's Indiana.